Entrepreneurship encouraged within digitally literate population leads to the establishment of startups and businesses that innovate and meet new market needs, directly creating new jobs. As businesses and entrepreneurs embrace innovative technologies, they streamline their operations and increase productivity, and open new markets and services, necessitating a larger, more skilled labor force. A good example for Tanzania is, again, ILO's SCORE program promoting education and skills development. It was launched with the Association of Tanzania Employers, and this initiative offers cost-effective training designed to boost productivity and also improve working conditions in small and medium enterprises. SCORE program enhanced productivity of the participating businesses up to 27% and further achieved 18% reduction in energy usage, underscoring effectiveness and sustainable business improvements. 5. Gender equality and inclusion. It is vital to ensure that development and employment strategies are inclusive and gender sensitive. In 2021, our government made bold commitments to accelerate this progress by co-leading the Generation Equality Forum. In many countries in the region, women make up to 70% of the agricultural labor force, yet only 9% have sole ownership of the land, and only 12 use banking services. And women spend 3 times as much time as men on domestic work and unpaid care work. UN in Tanzania is committed to establishing a gender-responsive, inclusive policies and regulatory frameworks to address these needs and of small, medium and micro enterprises and smallholder farmers. They will lead to significant improvements in their operational efficiency, access to markets and financial services, and enable them to expand, innovate and become more competitive, creating more jobs and promoting inclusive economic growth. Through UN Women, we are supporting the review of key policies on trade, employment, energy and extractive industries to ensure that they are empowering and responsive to the needs of women farmers, traders and entrepreneurs. 6. I'm getting there. Supporting African nations in accessing global markets, enhancing trade and regional integration. Under the Kigoma Joint Program, for example, the UN is supporting the rollout and capacity building for women and youth entrepreneurs on the simplified East African Community Common Market Protocol that facilitates free movement of goods and services and enables the entrepreneurs to access markets within the East African community. In conclusion, adopting tailored strategies for each African country is crucial due to their unique socio-economic landscapes. The UN, I believe, is instrumental in providing specialized support, facilitation, and expertise while upholding the sovereignty of each nation. This approach also acknowledges that achievement of SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and their targets often aids in progressing on others, highlighting the necessity for integrated policy framework that manages complex synergies and trade-offs associated with policy decisions to effectively realize all the Sustainable Development Goals. In the context of Tanzania, the demographic dynamics, particularly the youthful population structure, underscore the importance of deliberate and systematic strategy to enable young Tanzanians' successful entry into the labor force. Recognizing all these challenges and opportunities, the United Nations in Tanzania pledges our ongoing support, emphasizing a methodological and phased plan.
3 agencies, 24 agencies. So that's why I gave him some little extra time, including the ILO, by the way. So he's here to speak on 24 agencies and the work that we are doing in Tanzania, led by him. And thank you so much for taking your time in that busy schedule. I would advise you to drop by his desk. There's a lot of work that you can learn and a lot of youth initiatives that are going on with different UN agencies in Tanzania. My sister, Patricia, I'll ask you just two simple questions, how and what. How in terms of what the private sector in DRC, particularly business under the GEM, is contributing to job creations, and what partnership or initiatives have been most effective. How and what partnerships have been most effective. Picking particularly from point 3 of Sultan's contribution on partnerships with private sector. I'll sit here so you don't avoid my eyes the way Zaltan did it.
Thank you, dear. Thank you, Caroline. So, how was the first question? Yes? Yes. Well, basically, and it's a good thing that we have here the UN coordinator represented, because we do so many activities, and I would actually like to say, not because it is organized or co-organized by IOE, but I must say that IOE has been of a very, very big help, because as long as you agree to work and follow up what they're doing, they have so many solutions actually for EBMOs. EBMOs being employees organization. They have so many solutions, and these solutions can actually immediately being applied to the country, to the organization itself. For instance, us in job creation, what we've done, working with the United Nations, the coordinator resident, we've organized training of SMEs, but like the smallest SME, at FEC, which is the employers organization I'm part of, we've actually organized training by the UN, okay, but for the SMEs in everything that is public, state-owned market and public market. We've organized this because they actually had no idea, and we also made sure that they would register onto the system, because you have a program that came out that's called Les 145 Territoires, was launched by the head of state, okay, and from there to us, or to SMEs that are also represented by us, it's kind of difficult. And so we took them, the UN positioned themselves in the middle, and we were able to be effective, actually, in helping these SMEs, because SMEs represent the backbone of almost, I think, all of our entity and countries. But sometimes they just don't have the access, they don't know how to have the access. So that is one of the things that we actually did to create, and it's working well because they've all registered, they receive all the offers directly when it's there, and it has enabled them to create jobs in their own company, to actually grow. So that is something that was very effective from our point of view. And another program also that we've actually been, in partnership, I spoke, let's say, state, okay, from an institution point of view, that was state first. Now I'm going to go to the more, let's say, business world, okay? Employers, business people amongst themselves. And I'm going to name here, once again, IOE for sure, but with a program called like Tech at Work, for instance. There are many, but this one is very pragmatic, very hands-on, which is they train the youth where they are. You see, and Microsoft has launched this great, I think it's really one of the most effective programs that I've ever seen, because youth are trained where they are, wherever they are in the country they train. They'll use a computer or a phone, whatever, their phone, most of them have mobile phone or PDAs, okay, and they actually train for 2 weeks, 5 days, they train into entrepreneurship, and then train into Microsoft Office, which we all use, which we all need, and basically, they just trained. And that is great because we've been monitoring this, and we can actually go further with them because we have all the data, and that's actually very interesting. So these are the 2 points that I can mention. I can go into more details, but I'm looking at you from a time point of view. I've been told like many times that time. Make sure. So these are the 2 things that I can actually mention as how we have actually done it, but through partnerships. You see, that's where partnerships becomes important, and institutional partnerships like the UN, but private sector partnerships like Microsoft through IOE.
Thank you, my sister. She's a lady. I'm not saying anything, but yeah, she has actually picked on Zaltan's presentation a practical example of how she's working in DRC Congo with the UN coordinator, resident coordinator in DRC Congo. So I would also encourage you to get in touch with your various countries' UN representatives to see what work is there and how you can partner together moving forward. But also she mentioned something that also Zaltan talked about in terms of data, geographic divide, urban, rural, and she said they are training these youths where they are, because the other challenge is accessibility to the opportunities that are there for the youth that are in terms of areas that are disadvantaged. I'll move over to Mr. Macomb. Yeah, SCFTA. That's one of my favorite area that I've worked with us. What opportunities do you foresee in terms of job creation and how SCFTA facilitates, particularly transition of informal to formal sector? And
and to talk about this important flagship. To talk about the ASFTA and its impact on job creation across the continent, I'll say the ASFTA is regarded as always mentioned by His Excellency Wamkele Mene as the springboard for the structural transformation of the African continent. And the ASFTA, following its objectives, has as goal to ensure economic diversification of African states. Here we are talking about 1.3 billion people being converged in a single market, because that's what the ASFTA is all about, creation of a single market with the liberalization of the market through the protocol on trade in goods provides that 90% of the tariffs will be removed on goods. So small and medium-sized enterprises across the continent have this privilege to enjoy the tariff uplift of 90%. It's an opportunity for small and medium-sized enterprises to scale up their business and to enjoy the benefits of the ASFTA. Great work has been done by research organizations, notably the International Trade Center, the World Bank, the Trade Law Center in South Africa, and some areas have been identified already as levers to enhance the structural transformation of the African continent, notably the manufacturing sector, the agricultural sector, and the services sector. To talk about the manufacturing sector, the Brooklyn Institute in America project that about 16 million jobs will be created by 2035 if the ASFTA is effectively implemented. And some areas where these jobs will be created include the textile and apparel sector, the mining sector, and also other sectors within the manufacturing sector, which will also create new opportunities. The service sector also has been identified, and many countries rely on the service sector, which has a great impact on the state economy. For example, in Kenya, the service sector constitutes about 40% on the state economy. For example, in Kenya, the service sector constitutes about 43% of the GDP of the economy. And the service sector is an interwoven sector because the service sector also supports the trade in goods sector. Another important sector that has been identified is the agricultural sector, where the World Bank has outlined in its report of 2021 that the smooth implementation of the ASFTA is going to support the improvement of the well-being of the people, removing about 1.5% of the African, that's the population of Africa, 1.5% from abject poverty, and improving significantly the wages of 68 million people. So the ASFTA, it's just that framework agreement that, if well implemented by the various member states, is going to create a lot of opportunities across the continent. And trade is ongoing through the Guided Trade Initiative. There are member states of the African Union parties to the agreement who have commenced trade, and the feedback already gotten from those who have traded under the Guided Trade Initiative is positive. But it also requires that other flagship programs should also be ratified to support the ASFTA implementation, notably the Free Movement Protocol on Persons. When goods move and people don't move, trade won't be effective. And about 1.3 billion people, we're talking about 1.3 billion consumers. So these consumers, they need goods and services that are supposed to be supplied to them. It is an opportunity for Africans, small and medium-sized enterprises with creative ideas, with innovation, to be able to support the implementation of this agenda by putting the ideas into contribution within the policy realm. So states need to take into account the various actors in their policy framework, notably the citizens, the trade unions, the women who constitute a bulk of informal cross-border trade. And the ASFTA entails that sectors such as the textile, the apparel sectors will be organized. When these sectors are well organized, automatically those that are supposed to benefit from the benefits of the ASFTA will ensure that their workers are registered, they have social security and also economic security, decent jobs are offered to them, and also that there is a career path for these workers. So I believe that the ASFTA is that lever for change and to ensure the structural transformation of the continent, but it entails the support of all of us, the development partners, the trade unions, and the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. I think it's, as social partners, it's really important for us to intensify our involvement in terms of realization of the implementation of the ACFTA. There are so many issues that are there that we need to push, or they are missing there that we need to push to ensure it actually benefits us. I will just diverge a little bit. The consignment that left Kenya to Ghana, who can guess the route from Kenya to Ghana, where it went to first before it arrived in Ghana? It went to Singapore, and then it went to Ghana. It took around, I think, 40 days for the consignment to arrive to Ghana. Do youth have that time and the resources to wait for their goods to cross the continent? So the issue of infrastructure for the youth to be able to benefit the full opportunities that are there in the ACFTA is also a matter of discussion. Private partnership, private-public partnership in infrastructure development for both soft and hard infrastructure so that the youth can actually be able to benefit. I will finish my discussion with Dr. Donald. Dr. Donald is in the business of poverty research. And I think all these questions that we've been asking, he might have the answer. He's from Rapport, which is research on poverty alleviation in Tanzania. Dr. Donald, the informal economy, how has it contributed to the economy of Tanzania, and what strategies or initiatives exist in Tanzania in terms of moving from informality to formal? Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. That's a very long question to answer in 5 minutes, but I will try. Of course, because the earlier speakers have highlighted some of the issues. The Vice President in the morning gave us a statistic, 47% of the economy of GDP coming from the informal sector. And as you have heard from the resident coordinator, the issue of structural transformation underlies the issues of informality. It's unfortunate that the informal sector is actually growing. The informal economy is growing rather than shrinking. When you see the labor movement seems to be moving in the opposite direction. Instead of moving from agriculture to industry and then to services at a later stage, it's moving away from manufacturing and away from agriculture towards informal service sector. 65% of the people involved in informal activities are in wholesale and trade. Therefore, continuing to undermine productivity of the key productive sectors. And here, is the reason for low elasticity of growth to poverty. Because activities in the informal sector often have very low returns to labor. A lot of players and actors in the informal sector do not grow in terms of their activities, even those that are involved in the manufacturing sector. Over 80%, actually close to 90% of manufacturing units registered in Tanzania, for example, are all those that have employees below 4 people, 1 to 4 people. Extremely small, with very little capital intensity. So productivity of labor is actually very low, and therefore the earnings correspond to that low productivity. They don't very much expand their scale, and often they are characterized by underemployment, which either are seasonal or relates from different shocks that occur to the household. Even the character of ownership of businesses and assets. One report from Property Kurabita, the organization, the program that was trying to formalize assets, showed that over 80% of assets owned by households in urban areas are extra-legal. Those cannot give access to finance for players in the informal sector that they could be able to procure machines and technology in order to produce to scale. So therefore, the translation of that labor productivity and earnings actually shows that contributes to a continuing poverty or slow poverty reduction. Coming to the second part of the question, the strategies. I think there have been a lot of actions, and the Vice President outlined some of them. I don't want to repeat, but I would like to emphasize what is needed to actually address the issue of informality and hence poverty. I think for me, the structure of the economy. And this would require a heavy investment in promoting private sector growth, either by attracting domestic accumulation of capital and investment, or foreign direct investment, which requires very deep and rapid institutional reforms. There have been some reforms, but they're not enough, or they are slow, within institutions that can actually facilitate and not constrain structural growth, not constrain private sector growth. We need to realize that we are operating in the world of the 21st century with the fourth industrial revolution that is driven by technology and digital evolution. We need to catch up. We need to ensure that we are attracting capital and investment from wherever in this world that can bring us technology and finance to support that structural transformation that will automatically see the economy formalizing and creating jobs that are decent, jobs that ends, and then we can see the elasticity of growth to poverty will begin to rise. Let me stop there.
Thank you very much, Daktari. We've heard from the UN, we've heard from private sector, we've heard from a practicing advocate on SCFTA, and we've heard from the researcher. And I like Daktari's presentation because he's given a solution. So I'm going to open up for, I don't know if there are questions or solutions. So I don't, if you have a specific question, please let me know who you are asking. Please don't make mini presentations because I've been very strict with the panelists on time. I'm just going to give 1 minute, I think 60 seconds to be precise. Who's going to go first? Now it means they have understood everything. 1 minute, don't go beyond 1 minute.
Thank you. My name is Fortunata McKenna and I'm from ESRF. And I do have a question to a colleague from AFCFTA. So I'm trying to go direct to the question. So AFTA is a protocol, right? And I understand many countries have signed to it. But I'm just curious on operationalization on the ground in many of the African countries. So how has that been done? And in terms of, has it been, I mean, do average citizens, we're talking about those in the SMEs or the informal sector, I mean, do they really, are they aware of AfTA? Has it been translated to different languages for them to take advantage of the opportunities that AfTA avail to them? So I was just curious about that when it comes to AfTA, because we hear it at our level, but I'm not sure if really it means to unlock these potentials from the average SMEs, those in the informal sector. They are familiar with it and they can take advantage of it. Thank you.
My sister, where was the other question? That's, there's one there.
Merci. Je voulais exprimer un souci parce qu'on parle de circulation des biens et des services à la ZLECA, mais il faut que les personnes puissent circuler. Ça fait combien d'années on parle de la suppression des visas? Les visas sont un obstacle à la libre circulation des personnes, des biens. Quand est-ce qu'on aura un passeport africain qui nous permettra de nous déplacer sans passer 3, 4, 5, 6 jours à avoir un visa, alors que nous devons signer un contrat le lendemain ou 48 heures après dans un autre pays? Merci beaucoup.
See, Monsieur, I think the questions are all addressed to my brother from the ACFTA. I will let you take the question, then I'll take the other panelists if they have a final word. You can take the question and the final word.
Thank you so very much for your various questions. I think I will start with the last question. Je pense que vous posez un problème de visa. Et tout à l'heure, j'ai souligné le problème de la libre circulation des personnes. Oui, il y a un problème par rapport au protocole de la libre circulation des personnes. À ce jour, on a seulement 4 pays qui ont ratifié le protocole de la libre circulation des personnes. Et là, ça pose problème. Et pour que le ESFTA entre en marche, il faut que les personnes aussi circulent. Je pense que c'est aussi une plateforme ici pour nous, pour porter aussi notre voix, pour que nos chefs d'État et de gouvernement puissent signer ce protocole, parce que c'est ce protocole qui est le déclencheur aussi de la bonne implémentation de la zone de libre-échange continentale. Le problème que vous soulevez, moi aussi je l'ai eu, parce que ça fait 2 semaines, je devais me rendre en South Africa et ce n'était pas facile. Ils m'ont posé les conditions et tout. Et je les ai dit que dans la zone de libre-échange continentale, les hommes doivent circuler. Ils m'ont dit que pour l'instant, quand le gouvernement n'a pas ratifié les accords, eux ne peuvent rien faire, ils ne peuvent pas délivrer un visa, un urgent visa. Ça pose un problème, comme vous avez dit, et il faut que vous, les trade unions, les labor unions, vous aussi, as you carry out the advocacy policy too at the level of our various government, let them know that the ESFTA also relies on other flagship programs and also other protocols. Thank you. To answer the first question, with regards to the ESFTA implementation by the various member states, the member states, they have the national committees on the ESFTA at the various, I don't know how it's structured in other countries, but in Cameroon, it is being piloted by the Ministry of Commerce. And also we have subcommittees on the ESFTA, subcommittees on goods, services, following the various protocols. But with regards to awareness, there is, I can say, there's much that has been done by the various UN agencies, and also by some, like the International Organization of Employees too. But the awareness is not really felt on the field, to be sincere with you. I believe member states need to carry out a lot of sensitization, training workshops, and also to invite the various small and medium-sized enterprises because they are the real actors with regards to the implementation of the ESFTA. It is the private sector which is the owner, and there is need for the transfer of this ownership of the ESFTA to the private sectors. With regards to the policy framework, citizens too are not implicated in the policy elaboration with regards to the implementation of the ESFTA. I believe all of these actors need to come on board for the smooth implementation of the agreement. And to recall, you said it's a protocol, no, the ESFTA is an agreement with protocols and annexures. We have protocols on trading goods and services, on women, e-commerce, dispute settlement. But the idea around the ESFTA is about the made in Africa goods. And the made in Africa goods we need to participate in creating these goods and also to market them across the continent. Thank you.
Very much. I will let Patricia give us her last thought on the discussion.
Thank you. I'm actually taking the occasion, or seizing the occasion with ESFTA because now I'm going to speak, I'm going to talk from an SME point of view. I believe that when there is a project that is so ambitious, okay, a means need to be put on the table. So far, for instance, I know that you work a lot with Afreximbank, for instance, to kind of finance certain projects, but I see maybe the route that you've taken so far, that the organization has taken so far is a bit of a complicated route, and you're not getting where you should be, because at the moment, you said it yourself, SMEs, they hear about it, but because the awareness is not there, they don't even see, and they won't even question you because it's as if it's not for them. Same as the population. But I think it is normal because when you meet with, I had the occasion to meet with him, with the General Secretary, but basically he speaks with government mostly. Here and there, we had to search for him when he came, the first time that we spoke together, we had to search for him to actually go and speak with him. And we were totally against in the DRC, we were against it, but like totally, you see. So, and that could also be a problem. I believe the approach needs to change. You know, you need to go where actually your target is, where the people are, where the companies are. We should see you and the reps more into EBMOs. Use the platform that we have, like the IOEs and so on, use them, the UN, use them, but don't be high up in the sky there with all our governance that basically, well, it's just government thing, but they don't even realize what's happening under. We part of different recs, like most of us, most of African countries, but do we really circulate, and though there's been a bit of an improvement, I can say, but do we really circulate like we said? No, it's difficult. You see, it's more like if we have a good relationship country to country, then we get places like, I'm happy to have red carpet when I come to Tanzania, you see, because you don't need any visa anymore, nothing, and we're very, very well treated, like in, I think, in Kenya and some other countries. But that might be actually the roots of the problem, is like not going to the targeted people or companies or whatever and staying high up there in the sky, and it doesn't bring up results. So like I say, go to the proper partners and then eventually it's going to start moving. You see, I'm a SME now, so, and I run different SMEs. Thank you.
That's very, very, very enlightening, but I think IOE next summit, you need to bring in someone from the SCFTA, because I'm seeing a lot of interest around the discussions around SCFTA and what opportunities that are there. The SCFTA has actually, is it a quarterly or a monthly brief to private sector? But who are this private sector the SCFTA is engaging? I think that's a question that the employers' organizations need to ask. They have regular briefings of the private sector. So it's also very important to ask ourselves, who are the private sector in Africa? Are they, indigenous private sector, or they are multinationals and transnationals that are occupying this space that Africans are supposed to occupy? Okay, so Zoltan, I have, I'm being told we are running out of time. We have 2 minutes. remaining in 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. This time I will be shorter. I would just like to remind us that finding solutions need to be quantitative. We need more jobs, but it needs to be qualitative as well, even more important, the quality of the jobs as well as the environment for the workers and in general. And also we need to enable the employers to give those opportunities. So it's really a two-way street in a way. I talked about different ways of, looking into the food systems and agriculture or sustainable agriculture, also at human capital development, partnerships, digital and technological advances in innovation, and also making sure that we take care of gender equality as well as promoting youth. And finally, the trade, and we've heard a lot about trade and markets and trade areas. These are all different things, but they're all very closely interrelated. So that's why I concluded by saying we need a holistic approach. But then we must remember that it has to be tailor-made for different countries, because different countries have different strengths and advantages or challenges compared to the others. I think we've also heard a lot about how, from different interjections today, how important it is to have a political will and to reach a compromise. Usually, things get done well in a given area, let's say in a continent like Africa, if we have a good package, not if we have too many individual things, but you have a good package. Now, a package brings good things in some areas for some, and some compromise in some areas for the others. And we have to accept that that's the way forward. It is in any sphere, it's in any continent, in any country. You cannot just go for things that suit you very well. And I think we need to work more on that political compromise and understanding that finding these, I call them packages, but finding these strategies and policies and visions that actually are going to move forward the whole continent and its people. So again, thank you very much for the contributions, and this is an interesting area where I said UN Tanzania remains very committed to work with the government and civil society and private sector for the people of Tanzania.
Thank you very much. Daktari, uko na neno la mwisho?
Just closely related to the issue of trade and what Dr. Fortunata had asked, the issue of CFTA. It is an important milestone that Africa has reached. But if we don't, given the structure of the economies and the fact that the majority of producers are small and medium, if we don't deal with the challenge of production organization that will help the producers produce to scale, specialize, be able to understand and conform to quality and standard requirements, forget about the benefits of CFTA.
Thank you, Daktari. And I would, Zoltan, please engage Daktari. He has the solution. Research is very important if we have to deal with this issue of youth. Asanteni sana, and thank you.
Can you join the panel for a group picture? Moderator, please, Caroline, please join the panel for a group picture. And as they do, let's give them another warm round of applause. If you can all please stand up and do a step forward and come together. And Dr. Donald, do you want to be in between the two ladies? We'll make the picture look more. Try to do that. So another round of applause. Thank you very much. Can we all just take a minute and stand up and stretch before the next session? Let's just, I would not call names for those who are concentrating beyond levels of concentration, but appreciating them. So let's all put our hands up. All our hands up. Bend to the right, and to the left. Let's try backwards. I'm trying to create space for the food in the evening, yeah? Please take your seats. Thank you so much. Can I have on the stage, without further ado, Mr. Douglas Opio. Mr. Douglas is coming to take us through the next session that's going to look on to tackling informality and unemployment. After this session, we're going to have a dance session, so please prepare.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I have your attention since now we are fighting for time, but time is not fighting for us, unfortunately. So I just want to request my panel to join me up here. You know yourselves, so I don't want to read one name after another, but just to request you to come to the front, and then we start off. So as the panel joins me, of course, I will take the occasion to introduce the subject matter a bit. We were moved a little in front, of course, because, you know, nobody likes informality. But the good news is that this panel will be specifically tackling issues of informality, but also unemployment. The ILO data indicates that about 83% of employment in Africa is actually informal. We have also had some statistics here from the Vice President earlier on, 47% in the case of Tanzania. But when it gets to the contribution to GDP, that number comes down to only 29%, speaking to the very low level of productivity. Secondly, what I want to highlight, we actually have a recommendation from the ILO, recommendation 2004, speaking about how we can transition from informality to formality. So some guidance is in place on what we can do. In this panel, we'll be basically discussing why is informality persisting. In some cases, I'm expecting Dr. Donald to join us again. Okay. Okay, thank you. This is what happens to informality. So that means now I have three experts who will be guiding us. But basically what we'll do with this panel, first of all, we'll discuss why does informality persist? Why, despite all this agenda to try and rid ourselves of informality, it's persisting. Then secondly, we'll also try to highlight what are the strategies, what are the initiatives, some case studies, what has worked that we can rely on. And then lastly, of course, we hope we'll be able to provide some valuable insights to the policymakers. So with this panel, of course, I'm hoping that my gray hair will reduce a bit. Informality is partly responsible for this. I'm trying to see how I tackle it. But with this panel, I know I have a team of experts who will help me in tackling this. So Frederick, I'm starting with you. Because you're the director of priority action. And in this case, addressing informality is a priority for us. But I want to start from the lighter side. I want you to just tell us about your role, about your mandate. Now, after telling us about your role and mandate, I want you also to tell us, specifically linking it to Africa, what are the strategies, what are the policy interventions that have proven most effective? It's a complex question, but I know you're up to the task. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. We speak in French, if you may.
Thank you. Now, since I'm relying on borrowed French, I shopped a few words from the supermarket. They're done now. I need
Merci beaucoup. Donc le nouveau directeur général de l'OIT a mis en place 4 programmes d'action prioritaires qui font l'originalité de son mandat et qui sont complémentaires à la Coalition mondiale pour la justice sociale et qui visent justement à contribuer à la réalisation de cet objectif qui est son objectif pour ce mandat de promotion de la justice sociale. Et parmi ces 4 programmes d'action prioritaires, il y a celui sur la formalisation que je dirige. Alors on ne peut pas comprendre pourquoi un programme d'action prioritaire si on ne revient pas sur la nature et l'ampleur de l'emploi informel dans le monde. Donc on l'a déjà dit, hein, c'est près de 60% des travailleurs dans le monde qui sont en situation d'emploi informel. Donc c'est une caractéristique majeure du monde du travail. En Afrique, c'est près de 85% des travailleurs qui sont en situation d'emploi informel. C'est presque 87% en Afrique subsaharienne. Et donc pour les décideurs politiques qui doivent justement mettre en place des politiques qui visent à la transition de l'économie informelle vers le formel, l'amplitude des populations cibles, hein, quand on parle de 85% de la force de travail, est énorme dans un contexte où l'espace fiscal est limité. Mais ce qui, au-delà de l'ampleur hein, du problème et de la tâche, les décideurs politiques sont souvent face à 2 éléments qui sont fondamentaux et qui freinent justement la mise en œuvre de stratégies. La première, c'est l'hétérogénéité des situations en termes d'emploi informel. Suivant le niveau de développement économique du pays, suivant la structure de l'emploi, suivant la structure de l'économie, les situations d'emploi informel changent de manière importante. Et donc les caractéristiques de l'emploi informel vont impacter justement l'efficacité des politiques publiques. Et l'autre élément, c'est la complexité des facteurs qui expliquent le fait que les acteurs économiques, les travailleurs sont dans l'économie informelle, les facteurs aussi qui expliquent pourquoi les gens ont tant de mal de sortir de l'économie informelle pour aller vers l'économie formelle. Alors l'OIT, notamment, hein, mais pas seulement, est aux côtés des gouvernements, mais aussi des partenaires sociaux depuis de nombreuses années, notamment depuis l'adoption de la recommandation 204 sur la transition vers l'économie formelle, pour produire des diagnostics. Les diagnostics, c'est un élément essentiel de politique efficace de transition vers l'économie formelle. Ça permet de mieux connaître les caractéristiques de l'économie informelle, de mieux mettre en place des politiques qui vont cibler justement les facteurs qui produisent l'informalité ou qui bloquent le processus de formalisation. Et depuis un certain nombre d'années, et notamment en Afrique, on a fait énormément de progrès pour mieux connaître justement quelles sont les caractéristiques fondamentales qui vont déterminer les politiques, qui vont pouvoir avoir un impact justement transformationnel sur le marché du travail en Afrique. Et donc on le sait, hein, en Afrique notamment, c'est près de 80% des travailleurs en situation d'emploi informel qui sont dans le secteur informel. Hein, ce sont toutes ces unités économiques qui ne sont pas enregistrées, que ce soit les micros, les petites entreprises, mais aussi les travailleurs indépendants, tout cela qui sont partie du secteur informel. On sait aussi que près de 90% de l'emploi informel se situe dans les entreprises de moins de 5 travailleurs. Donc c'est ça aussi la cible. Quand on veut penser la transition vers l'économie formelle, en termes d'emploi, c'est vers ces travailleurs, vers ces unités économiques de moins de 5 travailleurs, et notamment vers les travailleurs indépendants qui forment plus de 50% des travailleurs en situation d'emploi informel en Afrique. Et après, on regarde un peu les grandes caractéristiques, parce que c'est ça aussi dont va dépendre les politiques et les stratégies intégrées. C'est bien sûr en Afrique la place de l'agriculture. 57% de l'emploi informel, il se situe dans l'agriculture, la pêche, l'élevage. C'est aussi en termes d'âge des populations. On sait, et on en a parlé juste avant, sur l'accès à l'emploi des jeunes. Plus de 90% des jeunes rentrent dans le monde du travail en Afrique à travers un emploi informel. Et donc ça, c'est essentiel. C'est aussi la dimension éducation, développement des compétences. Hein, quand vous êtes sans éducation en Afrique, vous avez pour 95% de chances d'être en situation d'emploi informel. Et plus généralement, 70% des gens qui sont en situation d'emploi informel en Afrique ont un niveau d'éducation primaire ou moins. Et donc là, on a cette vision-là. Et à partir de là, on pourrait dire, et ça a été un débat pendant un certain nombre d'années, finalement, l'économie informelle, c'est aussi de la créativité entrepreneuriale, c'est aussi de la résilience, c'est aussi là où des populations sécurisent leurs conditions de vie et de travail, tant bien que mal, dans des situations de grande vulnérabilité. Mais ce que l'on voit, et ce qui est de plus en plus apparent, c'est que l'économie informelle, c'est aussi un blocage structurel au développement durable, blocage structurel à l'emploi décent, blocage structurel à des progrès significatifs en termes de justice sociale. Et là, les diagnostics portent et apportent des éléments concrets par rapport à cette nécessité de faire quelque chose pour la formalisation. On voit bien la relation très forte, je ne donnerai pas les chiffres, mais entre emploi informel et faible revenu, emploi informel ou appartenance à l'économie informelle et très faible productivité du travail, emploi informel, très faible niveau d'éducation, très faible capacité aussi d'investir dans le développement des compétences quand on est en situation d'emploi informel, faiblesse de la couverture de protection sociale, faible capacité d'accès au secteur financier, d'accès au marché public, etc. Et donc la question de l'emploi informel, elle est au cœur de la question de la justice sociale. Et c'est pour ça qu'on a créé, le directeur général de l'OIT a créé ce programme d'action prioritaire sur la formalisation, parce que dans l'économie informelle, vous avez des fortes inégalités d'accès aux opportunités, en termes d'opportunités de mobilité sociale, de mobilité économique, de développement de votre unité économique. Vous avez aussi des très forts niveaux de risque et une très grande vulnérabilité, notamment parce que vous n'êtes pas couvert par des systèmes de protection sociale. Et vous avez de manière encore plus gênante, d'un point de vue de la justice sociale, et le dernier rapport de l'OCDE, mais auquel nous on avait aussi participé, il y a une reproduction intergénérationnelle du fait d'être dans l'emploi informel. C'est-à-dire que quand vous naissez dans une famille qui sont en situation d'emploi informel, vous avez toutes les chances de rester en situation d'emploi informel parce que vous n'allez pas aller à l'école, ou vous allez aller à l'école dans une durée très limitée, parce que vous n'allez pas avoir les investissements nécessaires pour développer vos compétences. Et donc à partir de là, on voit que l'emploi informel est au cœur à la fois des objectifs de développement durable, à travers l'objectif 8, des développements durables, vous avez la formalisation, c'est au cœur de la déclaration du centenaire de l'OIT, au cœur de la déclaration d'Abidjan, c'est une des priorités continentales, et c'est au cœur de cette vision de l'OIT sur la question de progresser en termes de justice sociale. Et alors très rapidement sur qu'est-ce qu'on a appris, parce qu'à partir du moment où on dit et on réalise qu'il est essentiel de faire quelque chose pour la formalisation et pour faire bouger les gens de l'économie informelle vers l'économie formelle, qu'est-ce que l'on a appris et à quoi sert le programme d'action prioritaire? Alors le programme d'action prioritaire, il va venir en complément de tout ce que le travail que l'OIT fait à travers ses départements techniques, à travers les bureaux régionaux, à vos côtés, sur les différentes thématiques importantes pour la formalisation de l'économie. Et il va essayer... Yes. Just one minute, et il va essayer justement de mettre en cohérence les interventions. Et je cite juste 2-3 éléments importants de mise en cohérence. Si on veut s'attaquer à la formalisation, il faut s'attaquer à la question de l'écosystème productif. Qu'est-ce qui va faire que les unités économiques, les travailleurs indépendants vont s'engager dans un processus de formalisation? Et là, vous devez avoir un écosystème productif qui va permettre justement d'augmenter le revenu, d'augmenter la productivité et faire en sorte que les entrepreneurs puissent s'enregistrer, puissent enregistrer leurs travailleurs. L'extension de la protection sociale, essentielle, le développement des compétences, essentiel, l'organisation des travailleurs et des employeurs, essentiel, et bien sûr l'utilisation des nouveaux outils digitaux qui vont permettre justement de faciliter l'enregistrement, baisser le coût de l'enregistrement, mais aussi accroître les niveaux de mise en application des cadres réglementaires, et bien sûr faire en sorte que toutes ces politiques incitatives, puisque ce n'est pas le bâton qui va marcher, parce que les gens n'ont pas d'autre choix que d'être dans l'informel pour le moment, pour la plupart d'entre eux, toutes ces politiques incitatives, on doit s'assurer que les bénéfices de ces politiques profitent à tout le monde, aux unités économiques comme aux travailleurs, et prendre soin justement que les travailleurs puissent être enregistrés, puissent avoir des bonnes conditions de travail, puissent bénéficier de la santé et sécurité au travail. Merci.
Thank you. Thank you. I was still listening to the translation. By the way, thank you so much to the interpreter. Yeah, I got you quite clearly. Thank you so much. You highlighted many things, and I don't want to repeat it. But I think the biggest issue for me, which you highlight, is informality is a global challenge. But listening to you, it has its residence in sub-Saharan Africa. And for me, that's the big deal for the summit. The fact that we are the ones most affected means also we have to pay a little more attention to it. Natalie, you're young, dynamic, and excellent. You're the executive chairperson of the African Youth Commission. The interest of the youth, you take care of it, the African youth. Now, what role do you believe youth-led organizations and initiatives can play, especially as far as addressing informality is concerned? But also, how can we take advantage of youth engagement? How can we leverage on that to address this challenge? Please, the floor is yours. We'll share it anyway, but the floor is yours for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that generosity. And it's really an honor to be here on this platform. We used to say that we should be put at the table, and then others argued if we're not put at the table, we make our own table. But being in such initiatives and conversations is an honor to the young people of Africa. Without further ado, because I know time is limited, I'd just like to highlight and state that yes, the issue of informality and unemployment is indeed a critical concern. And as the executive chair of the African Youth Commission, I believe firmly that youth-led initiatives and youth organizations play a huge fundamental role if we are to really fight informality that is happening on the continent. But how? How can they do this? What role can they play? So of course the role is huge, but I sat down with my team and we dissected it in 4 pathways that I feel if we do this with youth organizations will be immensely effective. And of course, as young people, I knew if I mentioned the pathways, we'll forget. So we came up with an adage, and that is advocacy, implementation, review, and collaboration. So basically, advocacy means African youth and youth organizations are big advocates. They can serve as advocates to let the young people of Africa know there are hindrances or disadvantages to them of being in the informal sector. Because despite the aspirations and potential of young people, they find themselves marginalized and excluded from the formal sector. So it's not because they want to, but because there's a gap that has been created by economic disparities, a gap that has been created by inadequacy of the education system. So what is their result? They enter informal sectors to survive. And who better than youth organizations to tell them, no, this is not the way to go. Because if it comes from maybe government bodies or formal sector, they may not listen. That is the first critical role they can play, amplifying youth voices and creating awareness from the policymakers to the youth to see how they can be a good middle ground. The second big role youth organizations play is collaboration. Not every young people has access to this platform. I mean, how many young people are in this room? How many young people have this opportunity to network with such key decision makers as you? So through youth organizations, we can collaborate with government agencies, collaborate with policymakers. We tell you what these young people think, you tell us what is on ground, and we find a middle ground. The next pathway we thought would be really effective is implementers. How exactly do you plan on diminishing informality if you don't include youth organizations? A good example I can use of really good innovation projects that have thrived on the continent is the Youth Employment and Empowerment Initiative in Nigeria. This is an initiative that was started by young entrepreneurs. What they did is that they identified young people in the informal sector and then they called them, trained them, and found them opportunities in the formal sector. Now imagine if such an initiative was replicated in sub-Saharan Africa. Another example is the Youth Enterprise Development Program in South Africa. So how many of such initiatives do we know? How many of such initiatives have we supported? That is the third pathway. Then the fourth and final pathway is review and reflection. As someone mentioned, we are in the era of artificial intelligence. As we speak, every second, something is being innovated. But if we don't constantly review policies, we need to understand is the young workforce is not like the workforce of back then. Recently, there was a big debate about a Gen Z who was invited for a job interview, and he didn't go for the job interview because the time of the job interview clashed with his gym. So you see, Gen Z has a mindset that prioritizes its well-being over delivering at the workplace. And then boomers and the other generation prioritize effectiveness and delivery. So how can we merge the two? How can we create jobs and work environments where these young people would actually want to? Because something we're taking for granted is that yes, the jobs may be created, but what if they don't apply for these jobs? What if they'd rather go on YouTube and TikTok and earn their money from there? So that will just not be a means to an end. Now, to answer the second question of how can youth engagement
Keep it short.
Yes,
Thank
effectively leverage, we can look at policy co-creation. If we don't involve these young people in policy co-creation, you will end up creating policies that do not serve anyone. We support them. Why can't we see how to upskill them? Then lastly, monitoring and evaluation to see what works. What are we doing as employers? What are we doing in our own companies regarding our hiring systems, our internship systems, our training systems? Because before you blame governments and policies, what are we doing as key decision makers in our different institutions? Lastly, increase representation of youth in decision-making bodies. Because much as they are inexperienced, you need to hear their perspective so that a good middle ground is reached. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Advocate, yeah, please, go right ahead. Advocate, collaborate, implement, and review. Very clear. It has sunk properly. Now, my next speaker, Fanon Bayer. You're the head of the National Employment Office. As panelists have really set the bar high, and I'm counting on you now to be as brief, but also as insightful as they have been. What specific steps or initiatives is your office taking to address these two primary operation challenges? Over to you, my brother. Unfortunately, I can't speak in French, but I would have loved to speak to you directly, but I know the interpreters are helping. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, the translator will help you very much.
Very well.
But I will speak in French.
They are doing an excellent job.
En tout cas, grand merci pour la parole. Pour moi, c'est une belle opportunité pour pouvoir représenter le Congo et l'Office national de l'emploi. C'est une institution publique à caractère technique et social. Et c'est la première fois, je pense, sauf si je ne me trompe, que l'ONEM participe au 7e sommet social ici en Tanzanie. Alors, une deuxième fois, c'est la première fois que notre pays a manifesté sa déclaration politique tous azimuts de pouvoir renforcer les institutions de l'État dans le secteur de l'emploi. Son Excellence Félix Antoine Tshisekedi, le 20 janvier, a placé l'emploi parmi l'un de ses tout premiers axes pour son second quinquennat. C'est très important, et je l'ai dit, c'est une décision politique de grande envergure, parce que le pays tient aussi à rétablir la justice sociale. Qu'est-ce qu'il faut retenir en fait pour parler de l'expérience congolaise? Je ne vais pas revenir. La première fois, depuis le 30 juin 2023, que notre institution, la Maison de l'Emploi, a des animateurs dans un conseil d'administration. Cet office a été créé en 2002, mais il a fallu 21 ans pour que le président décide de doter cette institution de représentants du gouvernement, composés d'un membre représentant les employeurs et d'un autre représentant les employés, c'est les syndicalistes, et de manière à ce qu'on remplisse un des défis, c'est la digitalisation de nos services. Nous devons numériser. Parce que pour un pays aux dimensions d'un continent comme le Congo, 2 345 000 km², eh ben, il faut y aller. Dans tous les recoins, il faut connaître où s'effectue l'emploi, où s'exerce l'emploi, quels sont les employeurs et que font les jeunes. Ça, c'est une première chose, un premier défi, une solution. Eh bien, tout est à venir, tout est apprécié. Dès que les moyens sont disponibles, je pense que nous pourrions atteindre la majeure partie des jeunes qu'il faut absolument employer. La direction générale, quant à elle, a aussi levé une option sur une politique de proximité. Pour le moment, pour ceux qui connaissent le Congo, vous avez des antennes avec un nombre réduit de personnel pour une population de près de 100 millions. C'est insuffisant. Donc, dans chaque commune, nous gardons de la présence pour être au plus près des jeunes. Nous avons également mis comme politique d'aller jusque dans les institutions académiques, universitaires et scolaires pour faire ce qu'on appelle de l'orientation professionnelle. Pour ne pas attendre que les jeunes arrivent vers nous. Nous devons aller vers eux, les recueillir auprès de leurs institutions dès leur sortie. Beaucoup d'institutions dans le secteur de l'entrepreneuriat. L'autorité de sous-traitance, le FOGEC, et j'en passe encore, c'est pour essayer d'encourager, détecter les talents, les orienter et les amener à se faire connaître. C'est comme ça qu'on pense aussi combattre le secteur informel. Le secteur informel pour le Congo, un pays que vous connaissez immensément riche, et la population souffre, elle est pauvre. De cela est né un instinct de survie. Ce sont des réflexes de survie. Vous passez par les petits cireurs de pompe sur les rues, dans les rues. Les mamans maraîchères, les marchands ambulants. Dans le secteur extractif, les mines, c'est la principale activité qui occupe le secteur de l'emploi. Toutes ces personnes qui vont manuellement creuser des remblais de terre, ceci, de manière un peu résumée, préoccupe l'ONEM, préoccupe le gouvernement congolais implanté. Et nous avons également, pour répondre à votre deuxième question, des partenaires étrangers. Ça, il faut le dire, il faut le souligner, je pense que c'était le volet de votre question. Nous avons des partenaires belges, nous avons des partenaires au Maroc, nous avons des partenaires un peu partout qui ne se lassent pas de voler au secours de l'ONEM, qui est le principal acteur du monde de l'emploi, et nous proposons des formations aux jeunes. Ça se passe en Belgique contre le secteur informel. Voilà.
Thank you. Thank you. So as you have heard, I did not misuse the word experts. These are real experts. So a special appreciation to Fanon. I just request you clap for him after delivering very excellently like this. Only fair that we do that. First, I hear from you very clearly, Fanon. We should move away from temporary things, task force, working groups, and actually create things that are permanent. To deal with working committees, creating task forces. So thank you so much for that. The tripartite nature of your intervention and working with evidence, not just wishes, but evidence. Now, you have been listening attentively. This is the time when I turn to you and to ask now for at least 2 reflections or questions. Right here, the lady in front. And because I'm generous, I will take all the 4. Just so you know that, and then the 5th lady. We have a bit of time, which is 5 questions, and then we'll close it at that. Then my panelists will respond to the questions and say their final words. Please go ahead, you already have the mic.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Dr. Adriano from DECA Medics Company Limited. I've listened all these presentations very well, and I have my concerns here. We have mentioned a lot of things, but from this presentation of the issue of informality, here some presenters talk about the education to youth and so forth. I think we have a big problem here. One of the problems is the entrance to the formality. A lot of bureaucracy, a lot of requirements, wastage of time. And at the end of the day, high taxes, corruption. How will youth prefer to go to the formality? People, they are not well, not favored. So it's better to provide good environment so that people will see the benefits of being formal. Then the things of...
Thank you. I will request I stop at that, and then we move to the next. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, there, and then we come to the lady there, and then we come in front. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My name is Mr. Mpula, the director of the Commission for Mediation and Arbitration. I would wish not to talk today, but to learn, but at least I have been provoked, and there are some concerns which I wish to address. And I'm coming from the Commission for about informalities of the workers, a lot of workers in the workplace. Imagine the challenge that we face when dealing with labor disputes involving employees who are in informal sector. Now, my question is, how effective are the laws of our respective countries to address these rights of employees who are in the informal sector at the time they file their cases? Because the laws actually do not discriminate or segregate one being informal and the other being formal. But what matters is how effective are
I know
our
being
laws.
an expert, you attempted to explain a lot, but please keep it short.
Thank you. Actually, just wanted to ask that and, in order to hear experience from other countries as to how effective are the laws.
We can move to the next question then. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Fortunata Makene again. So my question again is also about the informality and its persistence especially in Africa. As the presenters were discussing, I was wondering, like when you talk about these people who are in the informal sector, I mean, like they are so much intertwined in the formal sector. So is this just an African situation? Why am I saying that? So if you look at many people in the informal sector, either they use all the formal channels, like the formal, like the mobile payment, which is formal. The products they sell, most of them have been taxed already, which is also another way of they are formal. Some of them, they have office space, whether it's online or in person, is there a better way to find a solution of incorporating these people who are in the, we call them informal, but they use all aspects of the formal sector for their undertaking? So, and is this just the African situation, or do we have to be, do they have to be formal like everybody else, or the way the formal sector is in other parts of the world? Can we come up with our own way of handling the informal sector? Because majority of our people are in the informal sector, but they use all the formal channels. Like even you go in the streets, whether in Dar es Salaam or anywhere, all the products they have, for instance, this is what we call informal. They have been here, they have been taxed. They travel through the formal channels, and then most of the people take money through M-Pesa and all the mobile, which is formal.
The point is made. Thank you. We'll move to the lady over here. Very nicely dressed. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one question for the chairperson, African Youth Commission. So I'm aware that you have a conference coming up next month in Nairobi. I want to know what are the plans to really bring young people closer to decision makers and stakeholders, because I like the way my leader puts it. Young people can innovate faster than our policies. And if we must make progress, we must come together and find that level ground. And then there's this disturbing statistics at the table. Thank you.
Thank you. And the final question, and we come back. Thank you, sir. Please bring the mic to this gentleman. He might approach me during dinner. His insistence is a bit strong.
Mr. Fier, I'll tell Jackie Mungu that you are nearly snatching it from me. My name is Dickens Souma, head of Orfano. Don't you think the missing link to informality could be the fact that
Ce que je voudrais, est-ce que vous avez des partenariats avec les entreprises qui sont dans le pays? Parce que c'est elles qui vont, etc. Donc, je crois qu'il faut vraiment vous appuyer sur les entreprises, les petites et moyennes entreprises, et faire un travail pour l'adéquation emploi, chômage, etc. Donc, les formations emploi, je crois que c'est très important de s'appuyer sur les entreprises nationales. Et la question aussi du budget est très importante. Si la volonté politique, c'est très bien, mais si les moyens ne sont pas donnés à votre institution...
De moyens. Nous bénéficions de la contribution patronale des entreprises connues et identifiées, qui est à 0,2%. Nous sommes déjà avec ça en deçà du budget qu'il faut. Alors, la sortie du chef de l'État, quand il dit qu'il veut redynamiser les secteurs de l'emploi, il faut en tirer toutes les conséquences. C'est que nous qui avions l'intention d'aller vers le patronat, parce que sa statut, nous avons ratifié des accords même avec la Convention 88, tout le monde est à 2% de la contribution patronale, nous on est à 0,2, c'est très peu. Mais avec la sortie du chef et la décision du chef, je pense qu'on y arrive. Voilà, donc les moyens c'est cela. Les partenaires internationaux ne nous donnent pas toujours l'argent en espèces, ce n'est pas ça qu'on demande. Ils viennent renforcer nos capacités de formation. Voilà, vous avez Enabel qui a un projet évalué à près de 12 millions de dollars, mais quand il vient au Congo, ce n'est pas pour les mettre dans des banques congolaises. Il vient pour payer ses formateurs, les séjours, se déplacer. C'est un grand pays, le Congo. Donc on a des infrastructures aériennes compliquées. Donc il faut faire venir des gens de Kolwezi, de Bukama à Chwapa, à 2000 km dans la capitale. Il faut des gros moyens. C'est en cela du matériel didactique. Donc c'est sur ça qu'on compte. Mais pour le Congo, pour l'ONEM ne peut compter que fièrement sur le budget de l'État et la volonté politique du Congo. Voilà. Pour essayer de survoler un peu les autres questions, sur les questions de pouvoir identifier le secteur informel, pour moi, je résume cela sur la capacité à monter un bon système de monitoring. Même en Europe, les grandes démocraties, les grands pays économiquement forts connaissent aussi ce qui a été posé, de partager les informations avec les demandeurs d'emploi, de partager les informations avec quiconque veut chercher l'information. Et l'information, pour nous, représente un pouvoir incommensurable. C'est les médias, c'est un pouvoir fort. Dès que vous avez l'information, vous pouvez tout faire. Et donc, ça sont les défis à relever. Et je pense qu'en relevant les moyens de l'ONEM, on peut mettre en place un système de numérisation efficace, de sorte qu'on atteigne ceux qui sont le plus éloignés. Et par la même occasion, contrôler ceux qui pensent se cacher. Parce qu'on n'est pas informel qui veut, il y en a qui sont informels parce qu'ils le veulent.
Thank you.
Voilà.
Thank you, Fano. Please.
Answer the questions in two parts. The first question was about hindrances to young people entering the workforce. And I would like to, in this, applaud the International Organization of Employers, because the African Youth Commission is an independent Pan-African youth organization. But we attended one of the workshops, IOE identified us, and ever since then we've had an amazing working relationship. So collaborations such as these really widen our minds and perspective, and they make us start such conversations. Because let me tell you one thing. Right now, we're talking about informality, but it's a ticking time bomb. 10 years from now, employers will be begging people to join the formality sector. Because these young people are enjoying flexibility and independence. They're earning from TikTok, YouTube, makeup, street vending, agriculture, without a boss or bad working environments. So soon you will have to convince them with high payment and good packages to join the formal sector. So what can we do about this? The missing link now brings me to my second point, persuasion. It's not by force. How can we come, find a middle ground, and persuade these young people to join the informal sector? Because if you think about it, being in the informal sector, what are the disadvantages? Security from street vending, they don't care about their lives as long as they're earning money. Not giving tax to the government, they don't care about that. After all, the roads, healthcare, and all other benefits they're not benefiting from. So what are the things we can do to persuade these young people? Look, you're earning from YouTube, but if you can formalize these are the other bigger benefits you can get. That's an angle of conversation that we've not looked at. Lastly, how can we ensure that above all this, the conversation keeps going? Because trust you me, it's never ending and we need to constantly review. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Frederick, and lastly now with you. Thank you.
Yes, several questions. I will group them. But first, about the project of transition from informal to formal. I think it was clear in recommendation 204, it's a mean, it's not an end. The end is not to harass informal economic actors, it's not to harass entrepreneurs or own account workers in the informal sector. It's to increase productivity, increase earnings, reduce risk, extend social protection coverage. But to do that, to engage those actors from the informal sector in this process of transition to formality, you need trust. You don't participate in a game where you know you will be a loser. That's clear. Yeah. So that's why we need to provide quality services. And for example, about productivity, it's very important for this engagement in the transition to process to increase productivity in micro and small enterprises. And productivity will make them able to contribute to the tax system, to the social contribution system. But in the same time, we need to see how skills development, how social protection will increase productivity. You know, on both hands, you need to look at economy, especially for OSH issues. But we have a concrete example. That's COVID-19. COVID-19, workers and employers organization, they did a great job, but it's possible. And I will finish about the action program formalization. We have at the ILO, which is on transition to formality. Social partners have a lot to share, and it's very important to reflect all the innovative practices, approaches from social partners. That's why I'm very happy to be with you, to participate to the working group, to learn from you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So that's Frederick Lapierre. He's Director of Priority Action at the International Labour Organization. I didn't introduce him in full at the beginning. So the panel is done. The simple task that remains is for the moderator to thank all of you. So just to say thank you so much for your active participation, and thank you to our host, ATE. Thank you to IOE, our funder, EU, the government of Tanzania. We are just so grateful, including to the UN system. So thank you, my panelists. Now I hand over.
But if there's any of you that has training